Crystal, you said you put something on the tablet recently, since our last meeting.
And then when it's done, you said that finish.
That was it? Usually.
Like I
Shows
like
how we-
reports on it, so I just put it on there.
Oh, okay.
If you ever want to see the reason for the meeting.
Okay. Because usually I'm part of the tablet.
There'll be more.
Before the
Yeah.
next meeting.
No, as you receive them, everything is on there.
Okay.
6. Hello.
Got a half dozen watching already.
Half a dozen? That's pretty good. Mark one.
7.
I got nothing. What are we doing?
It's not showing up?
No, I see it.
Okay, good.
Oh, it's all the people in here.
Yeah?
I
There it is.
went back one page too far.
Oh, shit. We're already losing. Back down to 5.
Yeah, he texted me.
Ready to go?
Yeah. Seven. It's seven. It's on one.
Okay, guess we're gonna start here. We good there, Rick?
Yep, I think so.
Okay, thank you all for coming. You all know me, but I'm Jen Bench, the emergency coordinator for the arm of Miry Creek. So we called this, the emergency committee called this meeting basically to inform the public about what we've been doing over the last few years and increase emergency preparedness. That's one of our biggest goals. So the whole point of this evening is to kind of give you an update on what we've been doing and just better prepare everybody in case of an emergency. Okay, so tonight we're going to just give a little bit of background on the committee and just introduce you into who is in which role. We're going to give a bit of a fire department update because there has been some changes there. We're going to talk about some fundraising, and then I'm going to touch on emergency preparedness, some future plans that we have, and then we'll open it up for questions and input. So this is a good quote. Remember that when disaster strikes, the time to prepare has passed. So I think this became quite evident when those fires hit a few years ago. I know myself, I was not prepared at all for that. And I know a lot of people weren't in the community. So I think that really is what motivated this committee to get active and to start preparing better. We don't want everybody living in fear that something's going to happen, but we have to be prepared in case it does happen. So that's what our ultimate goal is of the emergency committee. So know the risks, make a plan, and get an emergency kit. Those are the best things you can do to prepare for an emergency. So the emergency committee, we meet several times a year, and we've been working on the emergency plan, training. So we've offered the incident command system course, wildland fire suppression training, STARS landing zone training, things like that to better prepare the community. We have upgraded some equipment, and we've focused more on organization of the actual fire departments, and we've done some fundraising, or looked at doing some fundraising and things like that. So the RM Council passed this bylaw to form the committee to deal with emergencies or disasters, and Simon's going to discuss a little bit further the fire department in just a few moments. So I was hired in 2018 as the emergency coordinator, and my main role is to ensure that the community is prepared for emergencies. I develop and update the emergency plan, and that is available on the RM website. It's a 40-page document, so don't expect everybody to sit down and read it, but there is some key things in there that I'm going to talk about later that everybody should be aware of. And then if there is an emergency, I'm going to direct and control that emergency. I do all the SASC alert updates, so if there's a fire or a flood in the area, I would put that onto the SASC alert app. And then if there is an emergency, I'll keep the Reeve and council updated and liaise with emergency personnel. So that's kind of what my role is as the emergency coordinator. On the emergency committee, we've got Kelly Bradford, Rick Bench, Byron Whedon, Perry Andrews, Simon Button, myself, Mark Hughes, Karen, Crystal, and Lindsay Knobs. And then our fire chief is Simon Button. And I'm gonna let him introduce all the fire rangers. And talk a little bit more about the fire department and some of the changes there.
Okay. Thanks. Hi, well, as Jen said, my name's Simon and I am the current fire chief for the Miry Fire Department, which is recently being formed. So if I can give you a bit of background here, again, as Jen said, it was following these fires that were pretty dangerously close to Abbey, and we started asking questions: how well could we cope with that? Had that been close to us? Had we been involved in that? And so we came up with a few conclusions here. That on the positive side, we had a really fantastic turnout of people, lots of volunteers, lots of people with Bowsers, water, aircraft, whatever you need to fight a fire, which is great, which is everything you need. What we didn't have really on the downside, we have two village fire departments, both struggling with funding. They have aging fire equipment, we've got two old fire trucks, and we needed to have a lot of investment in this whole thing. In addition to that, there were no properly trained firefighters. Plenty of volunteers, plenty of willing hands, but no trained firefighters. So we decided that the way forward was we needed some form of investment, and we racked our brains a bit and came up with the idea that if we put everything under the umbrella of the RM, there is a bigger organisation that is able to fund some of the stuff that we need, be it fire trucks, training, protective equipment for people. So on the back of that, we had the inspection done of the existing equipment at two fire trucks. One in Lancer and the one in Abbey both need extensive amounts of money, in the region of £20,000, $20,000 per truck, excuse me, per truck. So we thought that's money that you're throwing at old equipment that really we should be upgrading anyway. So what we also found was no communications equipment. We didn't have handheld radios. The only radio that we do have is based in the fire truck. And for most of our fires, they're out in grasslands or farms or away from the villages. That doesn't help us communicate with dispatch or anybody else that we might need to contact. So, what we've actually done is got together, we've invested in some equipment. There's a new fire truck, which is, if you can see, that's on the picture there. That's for wildland fires. The intention is to base that one in Abbey. Two existing fire trucks, and have one based at Abbey, one based at Lancer, and they will primarily be used for just village fires. So, bear with me. So we've already invested in radios to the tune of about $10,000, so that if we have a big incident, at least we can communicate with groups in different parts of whatever, whether it's fire or some other kind of disaster. And we've also purchased wildland fire gear for the people who have volunteered to take training and become fire rangers for our fire department. So, the way ahead, shiny new fire truck does not make a fire department. What we need is, our list is massive, but primarily what we need is people to step up and volunteer to take some training and be part of this. And we're we have a few good volunteers already that are going ahead with this. Pretty thin on the ground in the Lancer area, so anybody in the Lancer area who thinks that they might be able to commit something or would like to find out more, please don't hesitate, contact us, myself or Jen or anybody else on this committee, and let's see if we can just build on what we've already got. And what our idea is that we will equip volunteers. We will, excuse me. Yeah, we're going to equip and train a group of volunteers who, in a big incident, will be able to take charge and direct things and just help organise everything. We're going to do practical training, but in order to do that, we have to have full turnout gear. And to equip a firefighter is between 2,000 and 2,500 per person. So it's just one of these things that we have to go through in order to start it, just to start things going. We've already spoken to people from both colonies, the Abbey colony and the Wheatland colony, and they're very keen to work alongside with us in the capacity of their departments. And yeah, basically volunteers is the next stage. So that's pretty much everything I can think of to tell you. And any questions, please ask. So.
Do you want to name the current volunteers that you have, Simon?
Current volunteers are Perry Andres, who's sat there at the back, Todd Lamore, Brian Clary, and Josh
Hughes.
Yes, Josh Hughes. Thank you. We've lost one volunteer because he moved away, so that's where we stand. We're looking to get probably another half a dozen people interested that can commit a couple of hours a week and certainly be prepared to do this training. We've got things lined up, first aid training, but we want to get actual hands-on experience with fighting real fires and how to use equipment so that it becomes second nature. We don't run around going, oh, how's that work? Oh, I've not used this fire truck, or I haven't done that. It just try to make, from what we have, try and build an effective firefighting unit, because this is something that affects everybody. It's not just people in Abbey or Lancer. Everyone in the RM has family, businesses, livelihoods, that they depend on a crew that can fight fires. So it's important to sort of take this thing, in my mind, to take this thing somewhere where we can go with this.
So what does it require to be a volunteer?
Sorry, was
What does it require to be a volunteer?
To be a volunteer, well, first of all, show up. We want anybody who's fairly young and fairly active, preferably. Or
So I'm too old.
I'm too old. But we're investing for the future. We want to get a range of people that can bring different skills in here, and the main thing is being willing to train. This is not exclusively a men thing. Any women out there that feel that they can commit and are willing to be part of this, please volunteer.
So you
Come
will
ahead.
commit so many hours a week to train,
Well,
or what?
Yeah, it'll be a little bit, not so much right now, but going forward, they're gonna be able to commit to training, and then they're gonna kind of do a rotation of on-call, so that one or two are around all the time, so that there's always one person to run the trucks.
Yeah. So, yeah, we've already spoken with the Swift Current Fire Department. They've made their training ground available for us. We have courses that they're coming up once the weather gets better. There will be actual courses. So that's pretty much all I can say at the moment. Until we near the time, we know more. So we will equip every firefighter that wants to become part of this program and train. So.
I think when you're asking for like a 5-year commitment, something along those lines.
I would rather people not necessarily say a 5-year commitment. Approach us, tell us what you can do or what you think you can do and what you can offer, and let's take it from there. Most people hear around all the time. To have that sort of firm commitment, it's not something everybody can do. People's lives change, people move or do certain things. But if you think you can do it, come on, do it. Anybody else? Right. Thank you.
Thanks, Simon. So, kind of segueing from what Simon said, we went to talking a little bit about fundraising. So currently, the RM does fund the department and the committee, but that can only take us so far. Like Simon said, our wish list is long. So the committee has talked about doing various fundraisers. Obviously, during the pandemic, that's difficult. But this is just some things we've thrown out there, putting on an event like a snowmobile or ATV rally or a steak night or pancake breakfast, a New Year's Eve bash, a golf or a ball tournament. We're looking into reviving the community calendar, talked about shed collections, and then of course, donations would be wonderful, and that can be made at the RM office, and you'll get a tax receipt for that. So if you're interested in contributing to the emergency committee, to the fire department, we would really appreciate that. So you can stop in the office and give a donation for that. And we're open to ideas. Any ideas that are new or exciting that we might be able to raise some money with would be fantastic. We can't do a raffle. We looked into that. The rules don't apply to us for raffles, so we're kind of limited right now with the pandemic and some of the rules, but please come to us with ideas if you have for fundraising. Okay, so I just want to talk a little bit about emergency preparedness, how to prepare for an emergency. So not to scare anybody, but these are some of the possible emergency events that could happen in this area. Obviously, fire is one of our biggest risks. Dangerous goods or hazardous material release. Epidemic, pandemic, or health. So if there was contaminated water or the air was contaminated, an extended utility outage, that would be catastrophic for some people if we were without power for a few days when it's -50. So that's something we need to think about. A public infrastructure failure, so if we had a sanitary or septic failure or a transportation route. A lost person, severe weather, so a blizzard or a flood or severe winds, things like that. A mass transit incident, a flood, an aircraft crash, a pipeline leak or explosion, and very unlikely, but terrorism is also listed as a possible emergency event. So we don't want to think about these things happening, but we need to be prepared and have it in the back of our minds that it could happen. So, how many people here feel prepared for all of those things I just listed? Exactly, none of us. So, the first step in being prepared is to probably download the Sask Alert app if you have a smartphone. That's an easy thing to do, and that will give you an instant update about what's happening where you are in the province. So that's a quick, easy thing to do. And then familiarize yourself with the emergency plan, particularly fire preparedness and evacuation. I'm quite certain a lot of people don't know what would happen if somebody told us we needed to evacuate right now. So that's something I'm going to talk about. And then another easy thing to do is just prepare an emergency kit for your house and for your vehicle. That's something really simple that I'm going to touch on as well. So, and like I mentioned, the emergency plan is on the RM website. So this is what the Sask Alert app looks like. So you just go into your app store and download it for free, and like I said, everything will come right to your phone if there's an emergency of any type. So in the plan, the RM emergency plan, there's kind of two sections. The first section is relevant to responders and organizers. And the second section is relevant to the public, and that's how to prepare for an emergency. So these sections are what's listed. So there's information on resources you can go to find, prepare. It talks about emergency kits, how to prepare for your pets. So if we were to have to evacuate, you need a plan in place for your pets. If you have to go to an evacuation center, they won't necessarily take your pets. So that's something that you need to have in the back of your mind. You need to be prepared to do something with your pets. And then we're going to talk about evacuation, reception centers, sheltering in place, and the plan also has a home escape plan. And then there's just an information section to fill out, so you have your emergency contacts and any relevant information, so that it's with you if you need to evacuate. We can't always rely on our phones might not work in emergencies, so it's nice to have that on paper so that you have it with you. And then there's just some emergency instructions in there as well. So these are some different resources you can go to prepare for an emergency. So the Government of Canada has this getprepared.gc.ca, so it's got like a list of what to put in an emergency kit. The Red Cross has programs, training, news, and that's who you would call if you had a house fire and you needed some assistance after that. So Safe Canada is basically Public Safety Canada's the major department in Canada that deals with responses to emergencies, so that's more of on a national scale. And then St. John's Ambulance, I've got listed there, so they've got information on training and community services. And then SAS Public Safety has quite an extensive website. So they've got information on alerts, on fire bans, on road conditions, on so they manage 911. They've got SAS Alert Info, and then Civic Address Registry is done through them as well. So I've got their information there. You can follow them on Facebook or check out their website. They've got a phone number. So they're like they've got a lot of resources if that's what you're looking for. Does anyone here have an emergency kit at home? So when those fires hit a few years ago, I was scrambling, like throwing things in a bag, trying to get ready to evacuate in case me and my kids had to leave. And it was just chaos. Like my internet wasn't working to like look up a list. I couldn't really think clearly. So that's why it's recommended that you do this ahead of time. So it needs to be organized. You need to have it easy to find and in an easy carrying case, something like it's on wheels like this. You can't have it in the back of your sea can or it's no good to you. It needs to be accessible. So you need to be prepared and you need to be able to be self-sufficient for 72 hours. You might be without power, you might be without water, so you have to be prepared for that. And then you're supposed to, it's recommended you check your kit twice a year to make sure it's updated and that you don't have old food or something in there. And then consider making a vehicle kit as well. Like I have a kit that I leave in my vehicle in the winter with extra clothes and candles and things, water, stuff like that, so that if you were stranded, you would have those things with you. And obviously, never leave your vehicle if you're stranded in the winter. So this is just kind of an example of some things to have that they recommend in your kit. So this is the whole checklist off of that getprepared.gc.ca. So you're supposed to have enough water, 2 liters of water per person per day, and then some extra if you need for washing up or whatever. Food that won't spoil in a can. Make sure you have a can opener. If you have some sort of wind-up or battery-powered flashlight. A small first aid kit. Got that. Extra keys for your house, your car and your house. Cash. ATMs might not be available. Debit machines might not work, so keep some small bills of cash with you. Any important family documents. So, like what we do at home is we have a fire safe that we keep our passports, and I keep a USB with like all of our family pictures. We keep our birth certificates in there, and it's just ready to go if we needed to leave. Any other important documents we've got in there. And then keep a copy of the emergency plan, or at the very least, this emergency contact information that I mentioned, in case your phones don't work. I don't know anyone's phone number anymore, so I wrote some down, so I would have them. There's a whole bunch of other things listed, candles, and think about like if you got a kid, you need diapers, you need blankets, and you know, walkie-talkies, and a whistle, and paper and pens, and chargers. I always keep a battery charger with me, portable battery charger, so that we could charge our cell phones if we needed to, if we were without power. So, there's tons of things listed here, and you kind of got to tailor it to suit your own needs. Extra medication or glasses if you need, or, you know, duct tape, things like that. So, it's just something to think about, something to have on hand so that if something comes up, you aren't scrambling last minute if you have to leave immediately. So, you can purchase kits from the Red Cross if you don't want to throw it together. So, they do have those available. Okay, so if we get a phone call tomorrow, we might have to possibly evacuate. What would happen? So this, I'm pulling right out of our emergency plan. This is exactly what would happen. So in stage 1, there might be an evacuation alert. So authorities are going to alert for a potential evacuation. So that's when you get prepared to leave. So that's going to come to you either door to door, radio, TV, sirens, telephone online, or through the Sask Alert app. So that's just a potential. That's stage 1. So that's when you're going to get ready. Get ready to go. Stage 2 isn't optional. It's when there's an evacuation order, you have to leave. It's not optional, and the police will enforce that. So what would happen from our emergency plan is our evacuation captains will inform residents that it's time to go. So we have designated divisions in the RM and within the communities that are going to inform you if it's time to evacuate. So just going to look at my notes here. So at that point, you're going to take your emergency kit, any essential medications, your cell phone, and then if you have time, call or email a contact that's out of town to let them know that you're safe and where you're going. Let them know if you get there or when you get there. If you have time, leave a note on your door saying where you went so that when our captains come around, they know where you went. And if you're told to, shut off your water and electricity, take your pets with you, lock your home, things like that. So you won't necessarily have a lot of warning for this. So that's why you need to think about it ahead of time and be prepared. And then in stage 3, when authorities are satisfied that it's safe to return and that all of our utilities are back on, you'll be notified again through Sask Alert or through media sources that it's time, that it's safe to come back. Or your captain would notify you of that as well. So, any questions on evacuation? Who are the captains? So I've got a whole list of them. So like for the RM, for example, it's the councillors for their division. So, and then within the communities, we'll have designated captains as well. So. Okay, so for example, say we had a prolonged power outage and we needed to use a community facility as a reception center. That's one of the things that we're looking at right now is setting up those reception centers to house people if we needed to. So one thing that we would like to do is get generators and get the facilities set up so that we can utilize those generators and have the facilities stocked with water and different supplies so that if, you know, we had a prolonged power outage or something, people had to come, say, to Lancer Hall or to the ABC Center, that we would be prepared for that. So that's one of the big things on our wish list as well, but obviously there's an expense associated with that. So basically a reception center is just a place where evacuees can go in the event of emergency. So sometimes we could possibly be housing people from out of town. Like I know Lindsay mentioned during those fires that Lancer hosted people from Leader, correct? Yeah, so that's an example. But we might also have local people, like I said, if something was happening where we needed to all come together to heat or something. So. Okay, I'm going to pass it back over to Simon here. He's going to talk a little bit about fire preparedness and like controlled burns, things like that. So.
Okay, I guess I'll like to start with, if there is a fire, call 911 because fire departments cannot be dispatched without that. People will disagree, I'm sure, but that's the way it is. So if there is a fire, somebody has to call 911. And that way, the reason for that is, if it's a bigger incident, there's somebody who's in overall view of that in dispatch who are able to coordinate with different fire departments. Another thing that we have, there is a controlled burn line, and anybody who has a controlled burn is supposed to call them up and just let them know. That way you don't get the risk of any false alarms and people being called out when it's unnecessary.
And sorry Simon, I'm interrupting you, but that number is listed up there, and it is 24/7.
Okay, can you see it?
Yeah, well, you can access it online, or you could call myself or Simon if you need it, but save it as your contacts and call them if you have a fire.
Yeah.
Control burn.
Moving on from that, then it's how many people here consider if you had a fire in their own home, what would they do? How would they get their family out, their children out of the basement, for example, without fire escapes? Or do they know what to do? Do you know what to do? Are your smoke alarms working? And when did you last check them? Do you have carbon monoxide detectors? It's all about, this is all preventable stuff, or things that you can think of for yourself, your family, your loved ones, and just to help them in the event of a fire. I mean, nobody wants a fire, nobody expects one, but they do happen. And so it pays to just be prepared for them. What else have we got? Home escape plan, well that's really what I was just talking about.
I don't know if you want to just mention those WhatsApp groups.
The WhatsApp groups that are set up, they're a godsend in a lot of situations. They can direct people to where they need to go, direct water supplies, it provides local knowledge. A criticism I have of them sometimes is they're used for personal purpose, and it just clouds the whole issue on that. What I'd like to stress is that it doesn't substitute 911. It's an aid to what we do, and in my opinion, it shouldn't be abused, and it should be used with caution. Only tell people what they need to know and what is useful, not, well, you shouldn't be burning that, or you shouldn't do this, which does happen, I'm afraid. So, shoot me down if I'm wrong. Anything else? Does anybody have any questions on what I've covered, or would anyone like to make any more comments? Or? No?
Okay, so the emergency committee's future plans. We'd like to continue training. We're looking right now at doing CPR first aid, more training for our fire rangers. Simon kind of touched on that a little bit, some of the things they'll be doing. But we're open to suggestions as well. If there's specific training the community would like, please let us know and we'll try and bring it in. The more training and preparedness we have, the better. Grade entrapment is another one we're looking at. So practical things for our region is what we would ideally like to have. If anyone's interested in the medical first responder course, there is one coming up in February. I know one of our longtime first responders has just stepped down, so
25 years then.
After how long?
25 years.
25 years Janice served, so that's,
And Faye's still going after that time.
wow, yeah, that's amazing, so. Thank you to them and to Simon and all the other, first
Yeah,
responders.
there's
who made
Will
it.
and Will and Matt and Jeff from the Abbey Colony as well.
Okay, yeah. So huge thank you to all of them for everything they do, and, yeah, it's so important in this rural area to have that, so thank you, and if anybody's interested in that, please get a hold of me, and like I said, there's a course coming up in February for that. Perry, do you want to talk a little bit about civic addresses?
So this civic addressing, I guess it's got a little more to do with the RM in this particular committee, but it does tie in directly with emergency response. What we're doing, or what our plans, it's going to be quite expensive and quite time consuming to get this done, so we're going to do a little bit at a time. More or less what it is, every range road, every township road will be numbered with a township and range road number. Every yard site, or shop, where, like anywhere there's a possible accident, will have a civic address at the gate. What this allows, when you phone 911 and you give them your civic address, it is GPS to within inches. They can find your laneway, your vineyard, in the dark, in a snowstorm. They don't need to see necessarily, not that they would travel in that kind of weather, but they would have the ability to do it. There's no, it cuts down the possibility of any errors. Everybody knows this 32 highway running, if we handle it runs northeast, southwest is quite difficult for a lot of people that aren't from here. One example, I was at an accident scene 2 years ago. I won't say the ambulance got lost, but they ended up taking a wrong turn. It was about a half-hour longer trip to the scene than it should have been, which was unfortunate, but going forward with this civic addressing, like I said, we'll hope to eliminate any of those problems.
Do you want to do the demo?
Well, yeah, it's not really much of a demo, I guess.
Just to show it, so
Yeah.
the RM is currently doing another bulk order for these backpack spares, so Perry brought one to show everybody how it works and what it looks like. And
They're super light and super comfortable. Well, 10 times more comfortable than those plastic backpacks. This one's been well used. I had it full all summer, all fall, rolling around in the back of my truck. They're heavy canvas. One thing I will mention, I add about 2 ounces of liquid dish soap to mine. It acts like a
It's like a wetter, isn't it?
yeah, it makes the water wetter.
Makes
It's
the
like
water
the it's like the foam, just not as expensive. Doesn't work quite as well, but it does help. You can order these at the RM office. I think, don't quote me on this, but I'm going to say $250.
yeah.
Any
and when
any
you put that order,
proceeds?
Crystal? March? Yeah, so anytime before March.
Okay. Yeah, and any proceeds that we do make, I don't think there's much markup on them, but that will go directly back to the fire department. So.
Here, I want to get a picture of that.
Yeah. And yeah, like they're nice.
Okay, thanks, Perry.
So what can you find?
It's just like the old plastic ones.
No, okay.
Only they work way nicer. What would you say we sprayed there when we tested it? 30 feet.
At least, yeah. So you can usually get 30
If
feet.
you want to torque them up, you can get them to spray. And then it's got the adjustable, you can fan it or stream it. Stream the water in there.
I think so. Is that right, Christy? I think the bulk order, yeah, we do get a little bit of a deal, so. Okay, we're just gonna continue fundraising and budgeting for equipment upgrades and slowly try and, knock off some things off our wish list. Another thing we'd like to get is a little, ATV unit. That would be wonderful to have. And then the emergency plan will just continually be updated and evolve, and if you get a chance to take a look at it and you see something wrong or that you suggest should be in there, please let me know. One thing we are looking at is adding in unique equipment listing and water sources, so that if there is a fire, we've got a water source available at that specific land location, so that we're not scrambling trying to find where there's a dugout that we can get water from. So if you're willing to put that information out there for the emergency plan, please contact me. Like I said, any unique equipment that might be beneficial in an emergency, particularly fires, please let me know and we can get that added in there, and where it's located, so that, because we've got such a large area to cover, that it's important for us to list where it's at as well. So. Okay, at this point, we'll take any questions or discussion or input. We'd like to know what everybody wants to see for training, for emergency preparedness. Like, how can I better present this information to the public? Do people like to see it as a mail out or little videos on social media or on the website? Like, please contact me and let me know what you'd like to see. Questions? If somebody has a question online, you can type it in there. I don't know, is there anything else someone on the committee would like to add that I've maybe missed, or? You know, obviously I can't cover the entire emergency plan in a short meeting, and we don't want to overload people with information, but we're trying to get our feet off the ground here and get organized and get better prepared for if and when something does happen again, so.
Is the emergency plan on the RM website?
Yeah. Put it on there today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Has anybody contacted TransCanada Pipeline or anything like that?
Sorry, Kelly, I couldn't hear you.
Has anybody contacted TransCanada or any like the TransCanada Pipeline to see if they want to donate some money?
I think Perry had talked to them, and I'm going to be contacting them as well. Yeah.
Yes, it sounds promising. Plains Midstream is another one.
Yeah.
I guess, I believe we have, as far as our community wells go and power outage, I believe the Weldon well and the Peterson well are both rigged for generator hookups.
Yeah.
That was quite a small investment, but.
Could you repeat that, because there's sound issues, so I can only hear you really well.
Oh, okay. Perry was just mentioning that there is backup power for some of the wells in the RM.
The Weldon well,
The Weldon and,
which is on the Abbey grid just south of the hospital road.
which is on the Abbey grid there,
Yeah.
south of the hospital room.
Yeah.
And
And the Hewitson well.
the Hewitson well,
North of Lansing.
north of Lancer, okay. And Simon, does the village of Abbey still have backup generators for water?
Yeah, well, we can run the water plant. There's a stationary engine in there,
Yeah.
and we have a generator that runs the sewer lift stations. So if we're running water, we've got to have sewers as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, but we can run that in a power outage.
I feel like we've got a good start on things, better than where we were at 5 years ago. So I commend the emergency committee and the RM council for taking this under their wings, and huge thank you to Simon for volunteering to be our chief and everything that he's done and putting in all the hours to do that, and all the other fire rangers as well. Huge thank you to them. Our contact information is here. It's also on the RM website, or you can always phone myself in the RM office if you have more questions or concerns or?